Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
If you look at the mainstream press, we're in the economic apocalypse of the world. It's all bad. Orange man bad. Orange man has ruined the world. It's terrible. Everything. We've lost $5 trillion. I have my friends, I mentioned this yesterday on my local show, on my other show. My friends have been texting me, my liberal friends, losing their minds. You know, you supported this. He's destroying everything is the attitude that is prevalent in the mainstream press. And there was one article I read today about how there is an apprehension, most people in America feeling uneasy. And, of course, they're feeling uneasy if they look at the mainstream press. Because if you look at this, there's nothing good happening, despite the fact that jobs are increasing, the number of jobs increasing dramatically. There were 140,000, I believe, expected. Over 200-some-odd thousand came in. Don't have the figures in front of me. I can get them. But it was a, quote-unquote, unexpected increase in jobs, and this is just the beginning. If you look at what's happening in terms of American safety and what is happening, liberals are having a cow about that too. They want the terrorists brought back to America. How dare Donald Trump get rid of the terrorists and take them out of America? We have Obama-appointed judges and the liberal left demanding that we bring back a illegal terrorist, because how dare Donald Trump and this administration send him to El Salvador, when he's from El Salvador, by the way. So bring him back here. It's a nonsensical ruling. But before we get to any of that, the Washington Post, David J. Lynch of the Washington Post this morning, has put his finger on it. I don't agree with the analysis at all, but I've been waiting for this. I have been talking around the edges about this. What is happening, the big picture of what is happening. And this morning, David J. Lynch of the Washington Post puts his finger on it. Again, I don't agree with all of it, and I will parse some of it. The headline says, Trump may have just ended globalization as we know it. Finally, in the mainstream press, somebody acknowledges what is happening. The tariff barrage that President Donald Trump unleashed this week on the world economy marks a decisive end to an era of freewheeling globalization that was shaped by American policymakers, business executives, and consumers. The consumers didn't make the choice. That's my first. The consumers didn't make a choice. At least they didn't make a choice directly and say, we want globalization. They consume products that are put before them. And so in that regard, consumers as a group didn't elect to have globalization. Of course, they vote with their pocketbooks on products they want, don't want, but that has always been the case. The United States, Mr. Lynch writes, is now abandoning the system that made it rich and powerful, gambling that it can become more prosperous by waging a global trade war on friends and foe alike. And that I take major issue with. America was already rich before globalization. And in many ways, America was a very different place. And that place, many of, like the young people that are working with me, whom I adore, but you guys have no clue of what life in America was like before massive globalization took in. You weren't here. You weren't on the planet. You don't know how American life was. Donald Trump remembers it. And what is curious about Donald Trump is being a billionaire, being a very wealthy person, he could have simply walked away and had no interest in doing what he's doing or continue to use the system as the system exists to make even more money. Instead, what he's trying to do is make America great and prosperous in ways that don't require globalization. And that is a key to Donald Trump's thinking. Now, one of the things that at this point I think it's necessary to say is that globalization has had benefits, but its costs have been horrific on the citizens of this country. For decades, and we hear the mantras from the left, and it's surprising that despite those mantras we hear from them, the mantras, one of them, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. The rich are getting rich. We've been hearing this for decades now. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. You've heard it. Globalization has been very good for the titans of finance, who have now created a system that most Americans do not understand. They don't understand how arbitrage really works. They don't understand how the markets really work, how people know about IPOs and get in and get extremely wealthy, and they're left standing on the sidelines, even though they're the people that have to go into these industries, into these workplaces and do the actual work, and they're the first ones cut. They don't have many opportunities to take advantage of this system that has been built, this economic system that freezes them out. I am not a person that has envy or contempt for the rich. I love when people do well. And there are people who have earned who are extremely wealthy, who have earned every penny of it from their innovation, from their hard work, from their dedication to their own dreams and their own ambitions. I have nothing against those people whatsoever. In fact, I applaud them. I love the fact that they are successful, and I want that same kind of success, that same spirit that led them to be successful to lead others to riches, to wealth, to prosperity. But the system that has been created. We have some audio bites coming up. I think Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, has one that just kind of nails it down when he looks at what the demographics of prosperity look like now. And what Donald Trump is doing is forcing a reorder on American life, American economic life. If he is successful in this, instead of globalization where the American worker, those that can find decent jobs, those that can work, the middle class of America, instead of seeing their lifestyle crushed underneath this system, they will be able to prosper even more. This is an enormous undertaking. Birthday today for Agnetha Falskog from ABBA. 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 Of course, in 1974, they broke with Waterloo, followed by 8 other singles that went top 10, including this one from 1977, went to the top of the charts, Dancing Queen. James Golden, Snerdley with you. It's the Saturday Morning Vibe. Looking forward to catching up with you. 800-848-9222 is the number to call. I began by saying that the Washington Post, David Lynch, today has kind of nailed it. Don't agree with all of his analysis, and I'm going to get into more of that, but Trump may have just ended globalization as we know it. And thankfully, yes, this is exactly what's happening. This is a historical moment, says Carmen Reinhart, former chief economist of the World Bank. From the end, even if there's paddling back by way of the administration, even if negotiations start to soften the edges, this is the nail in the coffin of globalization. That's what Carmen Reinhart says. Yes. From the end of World War II until Trump's 2016 election, U.S. leaders led a global effort to lower barriers to trade, investment, and finance. Spreading prosperity to distant lands was seen as an antidote to the authoritarian movements that arose from the Great Depression to trigger a ruinous global conflict. Now, let's examine some of that. U.S. leaders led a global effort to lower barriers to trade. Did they? One of the biggest things in the life, and again, you guys don't remember this, you weren't here. NAFTA. And I remember the debates over NAFTA. What is NAFTA, I ask you? You're shrugging your shoulders. The North American Free Trade Agreement. NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. And at the time when NAFTA was being debated in our country, there were predictions that this would lead to a massive loss of American jobs, that this would lead to certain industries being almost wiped out. But NAFTA passed. It was passed into law. And all of a sudden, we had more trade going on with Canada and with Mexico. NAFTA, North America, Mexico, United States, Canada. North American Free Trade Agreement. You got me now. Right. What happened? It was anything but free trade. Free trade was a lie then. It is a lie now. Free trade did not happen. What happened was Mexico received plenty of benefits. American manufacturers set up plants in Mexico. Why? Because they could get cheaper labor. And now they could move their plants to Mexico, enjoy cheaper labor, which helped their product, helped their bottom lines improve, and at the same time ship the goods right back into American consumers. How did it benefit American workers who were out of work? Well, they got to buy stuff cheaper when they're out of work. Canada. Now, Canada, and I'm not an economist. This is my point of view. Canada has still protections on some of the industries that they deem to be very crucial, like the agriculture industry, the farmers, which is why American farmers have difficulty selling products in Canada. And by the way, NAFTA has since been replaced by this MC whatever deal that's another, but it's all built on NAFTA, this idea of free trade. But free trade has been a lie because the American worker has taken the brunt, with American jobs being offshored by the tens of thousands, American industries being decimated. I just saw a note from Princess Di, I believe, and I'm check right now. Yes. And Lady Benedict says Ross Perot was 100% right. Ross Perot was against NAFTA back in the day. This was a very heated argument that took place during the election of Bush 41, right after Bush 41. Bush 43 daddy. Ross Perot said this bad deal. America, you own this nation. You work it. There's going to be a giant sucking sound going to Mexico. It's going to be a giant sucking sound. And that sucking sound is going to be American jobs going down to Mexico. Guess what? Ross Perot was absolutely right. It was not only a giant sucking sound of jobs going to Mexico, it morphed into a giant sucking sound of American jobs being taken and spread across Asia, not to mention what has happened in the Middle East, which is all a part of this. As we began to offshore American energy jobs, American energy dependent, we became dependent on others. Globalization has helped almost every prosperous nation in the world and hurt Americans. And that is what Donald Trump is attempting to reverse. I'm going to have more on this. Don't go away. 800-848-9222 if you want to weigh in.
All right, so everyone's doing it, and I'm doing it too. April 5th.
Doing what, baby?
Hands-off protest. We're doing it in Boston. What? They're doing it in all 50 states. Get up. What? Stand up. Whatever you need to do. Get angry. Now's the time. We're coming out in numbers. We're doing this. Stand with us. All right? 10 toes down. Hands off. Hands off Social Security. Hands off Medicaid. Hands off our future. Our futures, our children's futures. Hands off all of it. Stop threatening us and don't take it lying down anymore. April 5th. Show up.
Oh, the liberals are having another protest somewhere. They had one last week. Okay, I had to watch this movie. I don't remember why. I think it was with a young relative or something. I'm going to watch Despicable Me. Okay, I'm going to watch Despicable Me. And I found myself actually loving the movie. It was so good. And then this song came. I just remember from the movie the roller coaster and the kids. And just like, and I'm like, what is this song? It was Pharrell. Happy. And today is Pharrell's birthday, Pharrell Williams. Of course, Blurred Lines was one of his hits. Ripped off Marvin Gaye, got busted on that one. However, this one from the Despicable Me 2 soundtrack. Number one in over 20 countries in the world. Pharrell Williams, happy birthday.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
This episode is brought to you by GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco. Get the most out of your vehicle with GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco original equipment. The only parts designed, engineered, tested, and backed by General Motors. You can find your perfect fit for most makes and models and choose from 3 tiers of parts, including GM OE or gold and silver aftermarket parts. Visit gmparts.com for more information.
Anyone can follow. It takes something special to be an original, which is why the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV arrives with new ways of surrounding you in luxury, including the ultra-wide 48-inch panoramic display and the multi-sensory Lincoln Rejuvenate experience. A true original never stops evolving. So meet the 2025 Navigator, the original that's all new and better than ever. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Lincoln and Navigator are trademarks of Ford or its affiliates.
I'm happy. James Golden and Snerdley with you here to the Saturday Morning Vibe. Looking forward to catching up with Princess Di a little bit later. Also, Lizzie Radabelli is going to be here, and of course, your calls, we're going to take them as soon as possible. Okay, I want to describe, I mentioned my young staff, and I love these guys. They're just awesome, and women. But you all have no way of understanding what America was like. And here's what I don't want to do. I don't want to paint this idea that it was all rose-colored, beautiful, everything was paradise, because every nation has challenges at every point in its existence. This is human life. Human life is filled with challenges regardless of where you live, what you do. But America was a different nation, and here's what America was for many people. Not for everyone, but for many people. America was a nation where you could find an entry-level job, grow into it, and if you prospered in what you did, you would have a secure future. America was a place where one income could sustain a family. And this is why you had 2-parent families with one parent, the mother, most of the time, staying home with the kids during the child's most formative years. They weren't farmed out to a daycare place. They weren't farmed out to babysitters. Actually, parents could afford to have one parent be the breadwinner. And guess what they were able to do? They were able to buy a house with one income. And many times, once the kids got a little bit older, then the parent at home, the mother, used to go out and get a job or whatever. But one income was capable of sustaining a family with sacrifices for many people in the middle class. And then people worked, would stay at a job 20, 30 years, maybe do some odd jobs to get some money in, start a business. But by the time they got into their 60s, they were able to retire with a nest egg. They were able, during those working years, to help their kids go to college, which didn't cost the cost of a mortgage on a house. It didn't cost $500,000 to send your kid to college. Kids weren't strapped with student loans that would take them the better part of their lives to repay. College was affordable. Now, did America also have problems to ensure? There was a lot of racial discrimination because actually the party of slavery and Jim Crow, the Democrats, still had a hold on political power. And so life was uncomfortable for many places with African Americans. But even then, with all of that, and we'll never make excuses that was the Democrat rule, even then, there was an attitude of tomorrow will be better than today. All of that was pre-globalization world. Again, I'm not trying to present a panacea, but this entire march down the road of globalization in the name of free trade is a lie. It has been one of the biggest lies told to humanity ever. Because there has been no free trade. Things have never been a free exchange of goods. China has always and still, in addition to manipulating currencies, their currency for their benefit, in addition to stealing the intellectual and corporate knowledge of others and using it themselves, in addition to slave and prison labor on a massive scale, China has never followed the rules of fair and free trade, especially when it comes to the United States. We've just been their consumer base. They make it cheap, send it to us, we buy it. They get wealthy, we lose jobs, we lose industry. And you know the interesting thing about losing jobs in industry, what happens when all those jobs go offshore? It's not just that the jobs are gone, the knowledge is gone. And you know what else is gone? Innovation is gone. Why is that? Because when you do something, when you are engaged in working, smart people want to work smarter. They innovate new ways to do the work. They discover new things. When all of that work is gone, that innovation is gone. When you have entire industries gone from America, and people complain about this all the time, there's a loss of craftsmanship. And you find the craftsmanship existing in some places in Europe. You can still find master craftsmen. In America, you can find, it's very difficult. Instead, we have a society of knockdown furniture that lasts for 2 or 3 years. It's made of cheap materials that fall apart like your flake board, which we now call MDF. And it goes into almost everything. You buy something today, 2 years later, a year later, you're throwing it away. It's not well made. It's just cheap labor, cheap products, but it floods the marketplace. And why? Because it's quote-unquote affordable. It's affordable because so many industries have left the United States. And we are not reinvigorating our own people to be excellent, to produce. That has been one of the costs of this globalization. And meanwhile, we are making other countries wealthy. We put all kind of restrictions on American workers. You cannot treat workers a certain way. You can't have these countries that we're sending off this work to and have sent off this work to have no such restrictions. It is almost immoral. And it may be very well because we know. You look at one of the companies, I won't mention their name, don't want lawsuits, thank you very much, who makes a lot of activewear. And there were reports about all the slave labor conditions that were being employed overseas to make these products cheap, while at the same time, this company's making billions and billions and billions of dollars and preaching and moralizing to Americans through their celebrities, by the way, and never taking into account or never being held accountable how they were making their money. Part of that was made possible by this globalization push. Out of sight, out of mind. It's not in our country. We don't see the working conditions. We don't see these people. They're mostly brown people, mostly what we used to call the yellow man. Not we, what they used to call the yellow man. I didn't do it. Anyway, out of sight, out of mind. Who cares? It's not happening here. All we know is we get cheaper products. Donald Trump is changing all of this. All of these cries about the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. This guy, a billionaire who doesn't have to do any of this, is saying, folks, in the world, America is on the wrong track. We are not going to send these jobs out all over the world anymore while Americans can't work for decent wages. We are not playing this game anymore where America, you can ship all your stuff here, but our people, our workers, cannot send things to your country because you have restrictions on what you will take from America while you are beating up America. Let's just do this. You know who explained this beautiful? Stephen Miller, cut 21. Let's listen to Stephen Miller for 1 minute discuss this angle of what globalization has brought.
Can someone explain to me? We protect and defend South Korea. And in exchange, they steal our automobile industry, they steal our electronics industry. We protect and defend Japan, and in exchange, they close their market to our cars. Protect and defend Canada, and they run up a massive trade deficit with us. We protect and defend all of Europe at a cost of trillions of dollars over time, and what do? They run an over $300 billion trade deficit with the United States. Why should America protect the world, send foreign aid to the world, defend the world, provide for the world, and in exchange, get ripped off by every other country in the world? And what do we have to show for it? The deindustrialization of the heartland, the destruction of the American dream, the eradication of our industrial and manufacturing base that we need for our national security, and the crushing of the American dream. It has to stop, not to mention $36 trillion in debt.
Now, quickly, cut 25. Steve Bessent, Treasury Secretary, was on with Tucker. And this is what Treasury Secretary Bessent, one of the items he discussed with Tucker.
The distribution of equities across households, the top 10% of Americans own 88% of equities, 88% of the stock market. The next 40% owns 12% of the stock market. The bottom 50 has debt. They have credit card bills, they rent their homes, they have auto loans, and we've got to give them some relief. That I was struck by the statistic from last year.
That's the message right there. Just as a bystander, I'm like, wow, okay.
All right. Or that, I like the examples, and I was really struck by two different statistics last year. Summer of 2024, Americans took more European vacations than they had in history. Summer of 2024, more Americans were using food banks than they ever have in history. I went into two food banks near my hometown to ask, what's the story? And they said, it really takes, for a lot of people, it's a loss of dignity to walk in a food bank.
Of course.
But they were seeing a new phenomenon, that it wasn't their traditional clientele. It wasn't people who'd lost their homes. It wasn't people out on the street. These were working families who could no longer, $100 at the grocery store, that basket of groceries every week, they were missing 5, 6, 7 things, and they were coming to the food bank to top up. So that's not a great America. Record European vacation, record food banks. And no reason we can't keep the record European vacations going, but we got to take care of these other people.
Amen. This is what this is all about, folks. And you can listen to these people whining like the Wall Street Journal. Well, who are their clientele? Their clientele are that top 10% who own 88% of all the stocks. And that's why they're whining. Guess what Donald Trump is concerned with? That bottom 50% who's renting, going to food banks because they can't make ends meet, who are looking for jobs in a nation that has now sent most of their jobs somewhere else because they can get slaves, practical slaves, to do the jobs for these people that these people used to do at a decent income. That's what this fight is all about, folks. James Golden, Snerdley. Folks, this is deep stuff. Tammy Wynette. Tammy Wynette passed away. The anniversary is tomorrow, actually, age 55, back in 1998. 12 singles, often called the Queen of Country. Of course, this, her biggest one, over 30 million records sold in her lifetime, but this was her number one. Stand By, Yo Man. James Golden, Snerdley, 800-848-9222. Can't wait to catch up with you. Your telephone calls, if you're on hold, stay on hold, please. All right, everybody. Ah, yes. Ronnie White was born on this day, 1939. Ronnie White with Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. He's the one that actually brought Stevie Wonder to the attention of Motown, by the way. And just amazing songwriter also, as well as one of the vocalists with the amazing Miracles. James Golden, Snerdley with you. I want to do this.
James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley, presents Rapid Phones.
And we're going to do a version of Rapid Phones right now. We may do several more this morning. John in Pennsylvania, you are up first. What is on your mind?
Bo, it's a honor to talk to you. Listen, another point about the globalization. I wish the president and the government would reveal the horrendous amount of money that we give to nations all over the world since World War II. It's just basically a stipend just for basically being our ally and not being communist. And it hasn't been revealed, and I bet you the number is horrendous.
Well, the total number would have to be researched, but let me tell you, what is happening with the exposure of the way that we've been spending money through U.S. aid has also been revealing, and that's been going on as a backdrop to all this. Thank you, John. Joe in Brookhaven, Connecticut, you are up next. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Bo, good morning. Bo, you have nailed it in that monologue. You should replay that. We had one thing to point out is the Chinese, not only did they make the products there, but they bought all the shipping industry, and they bought the ports in America. They own the ports. They cornered the market, the greedy, and the quality of life has been robbed since this free trade. You remember Kathy Griffin, whatever her name, Griffin, and she was crying a bunch of years ago, a couple of decades ago, about, I didn't know they were making sweatshops. I feel so sorry. Yes, we used to have one-income families. I remember Grumman out here where I live, Brookhaven Lab, Fairchild, Sperry, hundreds of thousands, Kodak up in Rochester, because the corporations would provide a living wage, health insurance. They stole our quality of life for Americans. You have nailed it, Bo. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. Thank you for the call. Nate in the Bronx, you are up next.
You know, globalization is not only a question of economics, that is to say, shipping those hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of manufacturing jobs overseas to the third world to take advantage of cheap labor. But it's also a question of national security, because once the United States loses these basic industries, and not just the basic industries, but also industries that are strategic, I'm talking about things like semiconductors, electronics, fiber optics, you name it. Things that are absolutely indispensable for a manufacturing economy to maintain military production.
That's right. And that's one of the things, by the way, that Stephen Miller and this administration are talking about. These are national security issues and also health issues. Our medicines produced everywhere else but America. James Golden, Snerdley with you here. Our number uno in the can, our number duo coming up. Lizzie's going to be with us. A little bit later on, Princess Diana is going to be with us. You be with us, too. Don't you dare go away. So much more to go. Welcome, my friends, our number duo of our Saturday morning vibe. If you want to be part of the program today, 800-848-9222. We have the pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, of introducing Red Apple Media superstar news anchor, Lizzie Radabali, who is the advocate for the oppressed, the downtrodden workers all around the world. The voice of her generation of brave, new pioneers into the future. Good morning, Lizzie.
Good morning, Bo. And yes, workers, we are the future. We are the future. Gen Z, we're here to make our claim to history.
Yeah, I saw one of your Gen Z guys following a senator around this week in Capitol whining about whatever. Anyway, he got told. Lizzie, you got a selection of stories here. We have to go quick because we got to get all of these. This is amazing what you've put together. Lizzie, okay, AI is here.
Yeah, that's where we're starting off today. So I actually have a little bit of audio from this story we'll get to in a second. But so this story focuses on a New York Supreme Court appeals court judge who man was trying to defend himself in court. He has an employment dispute. I don't actually know. I tried to find the specifics of this case, but couldn't find it. Anyways, he plays this video to defend himself, and turns out that video is not even a real person. We have that audio from the court right now.
The appellant has submitted a video for his argument. Okay, we will hear that video now.
May it please the court. I come here today a humble pro se before a panel of 5 distinguished justices.
Is this, hold on. Is that counsel for the case?
I generated that.
I'm sorry?
I generated that? That is not a real person.
Okay. It would have been nice to know that when you made your application.
So that's the state of courthouses today right now with the introduction of AI technology. This guy created this video of this, might I add, much younger guy. He said he tried to make an avatar that looked like him, but he couldn't. So he made this pretty, nice, youthful guy, nice haircut, button-down shirt, trying to make his case, trying to make his argument for him. And the judge was not allowing that. She tore into him. I mean, the full audio is up on YouTube on their live stream. It's pretty brutal. And I felt a little bad for the guy because after he gets his moment to speak, you could tell he's not a good public speaker. He's stammering. He's tripping over his words. He's very monotone. It's honestly kind of sad. But AI will not save us.
This is interesting, though. I mean, to be quite frank with you, Lizzie, if he could generate an AI defense, that is, he did the wherewithal to enter in the data to get this AI to project his defense. I'm just wondering, is this going to be something, this first try didn't go well, but I can see how this could actually end up being a thing.
Well, it kind of is a thing, actually. Several attorneys and law firms have already been fined by federal judges for using AI because the AI, it's not always right. It actually created cases. It was citing fake cases. It was citing
cases that didn't exist, pretty much.
Exactly.
But when it's used to actually cite cases that do exist, that can go, Lizzie, this is just the beginning of this.
Yeah,
so I'm
we'll
glad
see.
you found this story. Now, this next guy, has been arrested. I read this morning.
Yes.
This guy who goes. There's an island that is off limits.
Yes.
The indigenous people are off limits. You're not supposed to go there. You're not supposed to try to interfere with these people's lives. But here you have another one on search for clicks. He wants clicks for his social media. So he does what? He goes there. What happens?
Yes, so I'm very much convinced that the Antichrist will come to our earth in the form of a Twitch streamer, because this guy, he is a monster. He's this influencer, Mikhailo Polyakov. He's 24 years old. He traveled 9 hours in this little dinghy to reach this island at 1 a.m. And he didn't even see anyone. He didn't actually interact with the native people on this island. He went there. He didn't see anybody. He tried blowing a whistle to get their attention. He left a can of Diet Coke, which, if you're doing diplomacy, great way to, kick things off, a nice can of Diet Coke. I do co-sign that choice, but I don't co-sign the decision to go to a place where just as soon recent as 2018, an American missionary was killed at this island. He was killed by the native population who didn't want anything to do with him or, what he was trying to spread there, the message of Christianity.
The Andaman Islands, and they're off India's coast. And I think he has been arrested by the Indian government.
Yeah, he could face could actually face up to 8 years in prison if found guilty. So that's not a light sentence there for taking this boat out. And this has been a law in India. You can't go to this island since 1956. So you can't play the I didn't know card, because this has been in the books for decades, almost half a century.
He might be off of social media for the next 8 years.
Yeah. And this guy, I also want to bring up, this guy has hung out with the Taliban before. He's gone to Afghanistan and hung out, posed with, giant machine guns, hanging out with the Taliban. So this guy, man.
Anything for clicks.
Anything for clicks. Anything.
All right. Nintendo is on the scene.
Yes, Nintendo is on the scene. A lot of people talking about, what the fate of the new Nintendo Switch 2 will be with, incoming tariffs and stuff. Nintendo has come out and said, the price is the price. That's what it is. So right now they're partnering with a influencer who's kind of like I would say the Shirley Temple of Generation Alpha. This guy is known as the Rizzler. Have you heard of the Rizzler?
Of course not.
You've never heard of the Rizzler? What about?
No, Lizzie, I have not heard of the Rizzler. Tell me about the Rizzler.
Well, okay, to know about the Rizzler, first I have to also ask, have you heard of the Costco guys? Have you heard of the Costco guys?
No.
The Costco guys, that is no booms for you for not knowing the Costco guys. The Costco guys are these two parrots, a father and son, and they are on TikTok. They go around and they review, they got their big break because they're big fans of Costco, and it's in their name. They'll go to Costco and they'll say, it's a double chunk chocolate cookie, and they rate different items at Costco, the food items, on a scale of 0 to 5 booms. 5 booms, obviously, being the best. But Costco guys, they somehow kind of adopted this guy, the Rizzler. He came to fame also on TikTok. He's this very charismatic little kid. I actually have a little verse from the Rizzler off of the Costco guys song, We Bring the Boom.
You know me as the Rizzler. I'm the Panther dressed in black. Once I give your bro the wrist face, there's no chance he's coming back. I hang with AJ and Big Justin. Bring the boom, you know it's on. We're like the 3 evolutions of Pokemon.
He's the coolest kid ever. He is the coolest little kid ever.
Evolutions of Pokemon.
Yes, because he's the smallest.
Yeah.
But so he's like I said, he's the Shirley Temple of Gen Alpha. He's partnering with Nintendo. He's an official partner. Nintendo has big names for their official partners. Sabrina Carpenter, SNL's Kenan Thompson. So the Rizzler is kind of, representing the internet's presence with Nintendo partnership. He also has partnerships with Arizona, HelloFresh. I mean,
Lizzie, what's Switch 2? What was Switch 1?
Switch 1, a Nintendo Switch was a gaming console that came out, I think, I want to say right ahead before the pandemic, around like 2019. I have a Switch.
Mm-hmm.
You
have a Switch.
I do.
Of course.
I do.
Listen, I used to have a Switch too. You know what my Switch was?
What was that?
The one that my mother would take from the Rose of Sharon bush and beat my ass with.
Whoa.
That Switch. She would say, go get me a Switch. And you better not come in here with one that's not good, because then I'm going to have to pick one.
See, I play fun games on my Switch. I play my Switch is for a bunch of fun video games. So sorry for you.
My Switch wasn't, but yeah, I had a console Switch too. Consoled my behind every time I. Okay. Now, Lizzie, this last story has me really worried and concerned. And so you have to tell me what's going on here, please.
Okay, so 5 nurses in a single unit at a Massachusetts hospital have been diagnosed with brain tumors. Luckily, I do want to say all of these tumors have been declared as benign, but still obviously very concerning that, these workers in this hospital, might I add that they all work in the 5th floor maternity unit. So not only are we obviously concerned for the workers and the patients, the mothers, but also what's going to happen to the little babies? What's going on? What's the impact of whatever is going on? What's going to happen to the little babies being born there? So right now, the hospital says they've conducted an environmental review. It's all, good and above board. There's nothing that raised any red flags. But the Nurses Association, they disagree. They say that environmental testing was not comprehensive. 6 other people have health concerns. They're doing like a bunch of paperwork and trying to figure out what is going on. But cancer is like almost kind of become an inevitable part of life. Carcinogens are everywhere in our food, in the air. I mean, it's just very concerning that this would happen at a hospital. You really wonder what is causing this.
I hope, Lizzie, that we can follow this one up and see what really happens here, because this is alarming.
Yeah, no, it's very concerning. And yeah, like I said, it's in the maternity unit. So this has a big impact on the next generation. And, we need to keep an eye on this. We need to make sure that our nurses are healthy, our children are healthy, and our mothers, of course, are taken care of and are healthy.
Amen to that. Lizzie, thank you. What a great selection of stories you have. The last one is very concerning, and I've learned something now. I know what a Switch is, and it's different from the Switch that I knew.
Way more fun. Way more fun.
Way more fun. James Golden, Snerdley. Lizzie, thank you so much. Look forward to catching up with you next week, Lizzie.
Thank you so much, Bo. Looking forward to it.
James Golden, Snerdley. The beat goes on. Whispers, of course. 800-848-9222 is how you reach us. Nicholas Caldwell with the Whispers. Born on this day, 1944, as one more year to go in World War II. Anyway, passed away in 2016, but the music, of course, lives on. This was their big one in 1980. Went to number 2 across the pond, ended up in the top 20 here in the States. But it was the height of the disco era. The dance music era, if you will. The Whispers with James Golden on our Saturday Morning Vibe. Coming back. More of your calls and a lot more to go. Later on in the program, Princess Di will join us. Whatever you do, keep it right here. Don't go away. And what would Saturday morning be without the words and wisdom of a liberal Karen?
Quick question for MAGA men. Are you a rapist or a pedophile? Question for MAGA woman or wives of MAGA men. Who does he rape? You or your children?
It's just ridiculous. On this day, in 1942, Alan Clark was born. The Hollies, of course. 30 top 40 hits. Just One Look, Bus Stop, Carrie Ann. And, of course, this was one of their big ones. He ain't heavy. He's my brother.
Your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for an Oikos remix. Like a crunchy storm of sea salt praline pretzels, dark chocolate, and butter toffee, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 3 Oikos Remix varieties with epic mix-ins and 11 grams of complete protein per 4.5-ounce serving. See RemixYogurt.com.
We're shipping Mother's Day gifts with a rapid-fire round of questions. Ready?
Yes. My gift. Can you pack it?
Yep.
Ship it?
Yes.
Guarantee it?
Of course.
Oh, send gift baskets?
For sure.
Protect electronics? Dog-proof it? Return it if they hate it?
Yes, no, and yeah.
Are you the UPS store?
Hey, we have a winner!
Visit the UPSstore.com/guarantee for full details. Most locations are independently owned. Product services, prices, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Visit a store today.
James Golden, Snerdley with you. Very quickly, let's switch gears. And I'm going to come back to this globalization because there's so much more to say. Princess Di is going to be here. I think we're going to talk about that as well. But an Obama-appointed judge, I mentioned this near the top, has ordered the Trump administration to return a man from El Salvador, a Salvadoran mega prison, an MS-13 gangbanger. U.S. District Judge Paula Innes ordered the Trump administration to return him back to the United States because it was a clerical error, pretty much. Now, here is the deputy, one of the deputy secretaries of DHS. That's cut 18, speaking about this. Her name is Tricia McLaughlin.
The American people should know who this individual is. He's not some Maryland father, as the mainstream media will make you believe. He's actually a member of MS-13 and was involved in human trafficking. It's unbelievable, the framing of this. Whether this man is at the door or in a U.S. detention center, he should be locked up. And people should also know who MS-13 is. It is a gang that rapes, maims, and kills Americans for sport. They should not be on U.S. soil, and any media outlet who tries to make him a darling or a victim should really be ashamed, because the American people do know better.
Well, Media Research Center, our good friends at Media Research Center, put together a montage of the way that this is being carried on the mainstream media. That's cut 19. Here we go.
A critical hearing today in the case of a Maryland father mistakenly sent to that notorious prison in El Salvador.
Attorneys for the Maryland man who was mistakenly deported to a prison in El Salvador are making another push for his return today.
The Trump administration heads to federal court today after being accused of wrongfully deporting a Maryland father to El Salvador.
The Maryland man deported to El Salvador after an administrative error.
There's actually a court hearing involving the Maryland father.
The Maryland father's case is in court.
And happening now, a hearing for a Maryland man.
Details about a Maryland man. Tonight, the Maryland man. The Maryland man.
Maryland father with protected legal status.
The Maryland father with protected status.
A Maryland father with protected legal status. A Maryland father with protected legal status.
The Maryland father.
That Maryland father.
A 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 Maryland father.
One of the things that struck me was the lawyer for the Maryland man saying there is no such thing as a removal order to nowhere.
Yeah. Included in that, of course, PMSNBC, CBS, NBC, CNN, ABC, and this just goes on and on. Not that he's a gang member, not that he is MS-13, the Maryland father, the Maryland father, the Maryland father. So that's what we get from the left with this case. And, of course, an Obama judge has decided that, no, we cannot have these illegal. He came here illegally. He never had a right to be in America. He entered illegally. Because of a clerical error, this judge is now demanding this Obama appointee that this MS-13 gang member who came to this country illegally be returned to the United States of America. I mean, after all, he's a father. He has sired offspring. Your call's coming up as well, 800-848-9222. James Golden is the Saturday Morning Vibe. Have that second, third, or maybe even first cup of coffee with us. Whatever you do. And this morning, we turn to the New York Times, where you will see an article, How to Protect Your Retirement Savings Now as Markets Plunge. What? Yes, my friends, as you know, this week, the mainstream press, including the New York Times, Wall Street Journal has been off their rocker. Quite simply. It is hysteria, the apocalypse, the economic apocalypse, all things evil because the stock market has taken a hit. New York Times says if you're within 5 years of retiring, either before or after, you're at your most vulnerable financially. Here are steps to weather the volatility. What's the first step they say? Stay the course. Tune out the noise. Focus on the long term. That's the advice the experts typically repeat at times like these when stock prices are volatile or fall as they did Thursday, when the S&P 500 dropped nearly 5% and Friday when it fell 6%. Stay the course. Wise counsel for most people. But what if you don't have a decade to wait for retirement? They say one of the things you can do is build a cash cushion. You can try to build up your cash cushion. You can read the article to get the details if you're so inclined. Fix the mix of your investments a little bit. One of the other choices they have. But this one I love. This one I love from the New York Times. Adjust your spending. Imagine that. Adjust your spending if you're concerned. Why is this never, ever, ever the advice given to government? Stop spending as much money. And now that we've found so much fraud, waste, and abuse, really, in the government, they're still not talking about, the Senate came up with a plan yesterday, by the way, they're calling it a blueprint for Trump's budget plan. There's going to be a lot more back and forth with the House over it. But they say, the New York Times says, to protect your future, adjust your spending. Also, you should have a plan B, a plan C to economic uncertainty. So you can go into detail, read that. But I also have a companion piece, Protecting Your Future. And that, believe it or not, of all sources from NPR. And NPR explains why gold prices are surging to record highs. Price of gold hitting all-time highs this week. I think it took a little bit of a, I don't even say loss, but it did have a less of an increase in the last few days, I believe. But of Tuesday of this week, there was a new record price. I think it's down a little bit from that now at $3,177 per ounce, up more than 18% from the start of the year. The S&P 500 is down more than 4% during the same period. So when it comes to Plan B and Plan C, just saying. Protect your future. But the first thing, cancel out the noise. And that one I agree with. Cancel out the hysteria that is going on at the moment and just make informed, wise decisions. Looking at market conditions. James Golden, Snerdley, 800-848-9222. We will take some more of your calls very shortly. A little bit later, Princess Diana's coming up. I want to go back to this article that I spent most of the first hour with from the New York Times. Donald Trump may have ended globalization as we know it. And I love the fact that finally, a mainstream press outlet has identified the big picture of what is going on here. Of course, they seem to think I read into it that they think it's not a good thing. I'm celebrating, because this has been a policy that has done nothing. This globalization, well, this is what it's done. Let's go right into their article. Listen to this folks, this paragraph. The globalization that Trump decries for having, and they put in quotes, ripped off Americans, in fact, produced remarkable benefits. It lifted 1.5 billion people in the developing world out of crushing poverty, according to the International Monetary Fund. In the U.S., it produced millions of well-paying jobs, made available a wider array of goods, and kept a long lid on inflation. Really? It lifted 1.5 billion in the developing world out of crushing poverty. At whose expense? So what we did was allow for companies to leave America and seek labor elsewhere. In some cases, that labor has been little more than slave labor, and I guess that's supposed to be applauded because it lifted 1.5 billion in the developing world out of crushing poverty. How about the Americans that it put into poverty? Why are they not ever considered? How about the Americans that lost their way of life? What has it done to the fabric of this nation? You had a guy later in this article I was reading through this morning who was complaining about what it would mean if globalization were truly threatened. And his main complaint that he wouldn't be able to find fruit that wasn't in season. Because one of the things that globalization has done is make it easier to buy out-of-season fruits and out-of-season produce. Like that's going to change. You might have to pay more for them, but that certainly won't change. As I said, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on this. This idea that there was free trade. By 2008, anti-trade sentiment was significant enough that both Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama criticized NAFTA in the Democrat presidential primaries. You know, we had Obama. And we had Obama basically calling out Hillary because Hillary supported it. In fact, that's number 34. Let's listen into a little bit of, I don't think this is from the debate necessarily, but this is Obama talking about global trade in the past.
We can't have unfair trade deals like NAFTA that put special interests over workers' interests. And it's because of this long-standing commitment to working families that I will not sign any trade agreement as president that does not have protections for our environment and protections for American workers.
NAFTA needs to be amended. And I've already said that I would contact the President of Mexico and the Prime Minister of Canada to make sure that the labor and environmental agreements are actually enforceable in the same way that patent protections and other things that are important to corporate America are enforceable. Point number 2 on trade. John is exactly right that you travel around South Carolina and you see the textile mills that John's father worked in, closed all over the region. And it is absolutely true that NAFTA was a mistake. I know that Hillary, on occasion, has said that this was, just last year, said this was a boon to the economy. I think it has been devastating because our trade agreements did not have labor standards and environmental standards that would assure that workers in the U.S. were getting a square deal. And it is absolutely critical for us to understand that NAFTA was an enormous problem. The permanent trade relations with China, without some of the enforcement mechanisms that were in there, that you voted for, was also a significant problem. And we've got to all move forward as Democrats to make sure that we've got trade deals that work for working people and not just for
Well, see, okay, enough of that. Even Democrats understood This whole push to globalization had hurt American workers. I got Nancy Pelosi. Well, I don't have her, and that's a scary thought. There is Nancy Pelosi when she was younger, back in 1995. Nancy Pelosi, 1995, cut 33, and this is Nancy Pelosi from the House floor.
I'd like to call the attention of our colleagues to this chart on the status quo that the business is asking each and every one of us to endorse today. Right now, we have a $34 billion trade deficit with China, the 1995 figure. It will be over $40 billion for 1996. Since the Tiananmen Square massacre, this figure has increased 1,000%, from $3.5 billion then to about $34 billion now. In terms of tariffs, I think it's interesting to note that the average U.S. MFN tariff on Chinese goods coming into the United States is 2%, whereas the average Chinese MFN tariff on U.S. goods going into China is 35%. Is that reciprocal? On exports, China only allows certain industries into China, of U.S. Industries into China, and therefore only 2% of U.S. exports are allowed into China. On the other hand, the U.S. allows China to flood our markets with a third of their exports, and that'll probably go over 40%. And it's limitless because we have not placed any restriction. In terms of jobs, this is the biggest and cruelest hoax of all. Not only do we not have market access, not only do they have prohibitive tariffs, not only are our exports not let in very specifically, but China benefits with at least 10 million jobs from U.S.-China trade. The president, in his statement, requesting this special waiver, said that China trade supports 170,000 jobs in the United States, 170,000 jobs, whereas our imports from China support 10 million jobs at least. Fact is that U.S.-China trade is a job loser. And one of the reasons that it is because first let me just make another point, and that is that our colleagues on the other side of this issue will say that trade with China, exports to China have increased 3 times in the last 10 years. They have. But they fail to mention that imports from China have increased 11 times, thereby leading to this huge trade deficit. The other issue, in addition, if intellectual property is a $2 billion, $3 billion loss, technology transfer is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. If you want to sell to China, your products into China, the Chinese insist that you open a factory there. They misappropriate your technology, open factories of their own, and then say to you, now we want to see your plan for export. That's as simply as I can say it briefly. But the fact is, this isn't about products.
That's enough. Look, folks, this has been known. Democrats, once upon a time, actually talked truth about what was going on with trade. They have become the party of the globalists. That's why all this panic. That's why all this panic. I want to play that Scott Bessent one more time, Carlos, when he was with Tucker Carlson, because this is important when you realize where the hysteria is coming from over this. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent.
The distribution of equities across households, the top 10% of Americans own 88% of equities. 88% of the
Stop right there. Stop right there. The top 10% of American households own 88, almost 90% of all of the stock market. And what have we heard this week? What have we heard this week? How America is crashing, how everything is bad, how Donald Trump simply doesn't know what he's doing. Oh, no. As I said, the Wall Street Journal, their panties are in such a bunch, they can't even walk, to use a crude analogy. And it's this hysteria. Why? Their clientele are these top 10% of Americans who have watched, by the way, the market lost 5-6%, and they're acting like everything is in Depression era. 6%, not even 10%, but it's a temporary loss, and they are acting like the world has come to an end. They own the top 10%, 88% of all of the stock equities, the equities in this country. And because Donald Trump is now trying to stop an 80-year effort to put Americans last in the world through this unfair trade regime, which they call free trade. It's anything but free trade. It's free trade for the people that want to see America hurt. They get to do it almost for free, including the European Union. Especially in some cases, the European Union. Look at who has sprung up and become wealthy. The European Union has become wealthy. They won't allow us to trade there fairly. Japan, thanks to the Marshall Plan, the rebuilding after World War II, and strong American support, Japan has become an extremely wealthy nation. And I go back and remember the days of the Japan that can say no and all the rest of this stuff. But Japan has done quite well, as have many nations in Asia. China is the biggest. They have become a world superpower. Russia has done well. Middle East has done well. Why? Because we have restricted American energy development, and we've made them wealthy because we import their oil. When we have plenty enough of our own and plenty enough of our own resources, we have made every other of these nations in the world very wealthy at the expense of the American worker and the American national security. And it's called free trade. But you know who's done well? These people that have 10%. This 10% who own 88% of all of the equities, the stock, these global, in many cases, stocks. They've done extremely well. And now Donald Trump comes in and he's trying to readjust the American economy so that it benefits who? The regular Americans. Not part of that 10% that own 90% almost of all the stocks. Continue with Secretary Bessent, please.
The next 40% owns 12% of the stock market. The bottom 50 has debt. They have credit card bills. They rent their homes. They have auto loans. And we've got to give them some relief. That I was struck by the statistic from last year.
That's the message right there. Just as a bystander, I'm like, wow, okay.
All right. Or
yeah, and then he talks about people in the food banks that are coming to food. And by the way, I know people that use food banks because they have to, not because they want to. Just like the secretary has said. And these are people who work their asses off. They work. In some cases, I know a person that has to use a food bank that works 2 jobs, barely sleeps, and has been working for decades, a senior citizen. And this is how this senior citizen is spending the years that they should be retired based on they've been working their whole lives. This is what Americans are living with. And what you get is this hysteria from the mainstream press because Donald Trump is saying this is not right in America. We got to take a break. The platters. Smoke that gets in your eyes. Tony Williams from the Platters, born on this day, heavenly birthday today. Passed away in 1992, 40 singles on the Billboard's Hot 100 charts between 1955 and 1967. This is one of the most famous songs. The Platters. What an amazing group they were. James Golden, Snerdley, more of your calls coming up. Princess Di is also coming up, so whatever you do, don't go away. On this day, 2016, Canadian hip-hop artist Drake released this One Dance, went to number one in 10 countries. Stayed there. In the UK at number one for 15 weeks. The most played song on Spotify, over 950 million individual streams. On this day, it's Drake.
James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley, presents Rapid Phones.
Round two of Rapid Phones. Let's start with Jack in Northport. Jack, you're up next. How are you?
Oh, good, James. Hey, your show is outstanding, and Exhibit A is the Obama speech you just played. I never heard that before. Haven't heard it on any other shows. How that deal was terrible when NAFTA was a mistake. All right, and he called out Bill Clinton on it. It was a mistake. But why didn't we do something about it? Talk is cheap.
Amen to that. And it's not just Obama. It was Nancy Pelosi. In fact, it's the entire Democrat Party. Remember what we have listened to for decades. The rich are getting rich and the poor are getting poor. You finally have a president that is doing something that should please the people that said this. They are not pleased. They are filled with hate for the most part. And rage. Because Donald Trump is actually trying to bring America back to an age of non-globalist prosperity. Stay right here. Don't go away. My friends, we have arrived at our number trio. Here on the Saturday Morning Vibe, James Golden with you, 800-848-9222. If you would like to be part of the program, 800-848-9222 is the number to reach us. If you are on hold, please stay on hold. Last week, she was a little bit under the weather. This week, thankfully,
it's time for Radio Royalty with James Golden and America's Princess of Policy, Princess Di.
Her Highness is back on the throne, where she belongs, with all the goodness and the other royal nests, and all the nests that's good in America. Is our very own Princess Diana. How are you today, Your Highness?
Oh, so much better. Thank you, Sir James, and always happy to be speaking with you.
I am very happy to be speaking with you. I want to talk with you about what you want to talk about, all of this, the globalization, but before we do that, I just have two articles that for something that the last time you were here, you posited that AOC could be the next senator from Nueva York. Mark Halperin, we ran the article in the Daily Beast yesterday, says he thinks that Chuck Schumer has to quit if AOC runs against him. If she ran against him, I know exactly what she would say to try to beat him. It's very hard for me how to imagine how Schumer would come back, because the way to try to beat her would be to go negative on her. She's inexperienced. She's too far left wing. It seems to me all of that would backfire, says Mark Halperin. And then came this one. By the way, for the record, I scoffed when Princess Diana posited the idea that AOC would take out Chuck U. Schumer handily. I scoffed. I asked her if she wanted to bet. Thankfully, she said no, she doesn't. Thankfully.
Learned my lesson.
But I must tell you, AOC's chances of beating Chuck Schumer in a poll have come up in a poll in New York. It's a new poll. Newsweek runs the story today. Data Progress ran a poll, 767 likely voters. And the poll from March 26th to the 31st shows Ocasio-Cortez with nearly a, Princess Diana, get this, a 20-point lead over Chuck Schumer if she decided to pull the trigger and run.
Mm-hmm.
20 points.
Yes. Well, this is the primary. This is for the New York State primary, if it's the same poll that I saw, which is the Data for Progress poll, in which she received 55% of the likely voters in the New York Senate primary, and Chuck Schumer, 36%.
That's the one.
So I said to you during the last week, I said, what's the over-under on when he gets out? And I said, he gets out Memorial Day. I think that may be a little soon, but you said he was going to fulfill his term, but I think he completely resigns and wants to spend more time with his family very shortly.
I don't know about that, but let me tell you something. If there's a battle between, oh man. Anyway, glad you didn't take me up on that offer, because I don't know. This one, I'm looking at all the numbers now with the completed. Chuck Schumer is now, I don't want to use the word hated, but I will use it because that's what the grassroots of the Democrat Party, especially the younger demographics in the Democrat Party, they can't stand Chuck Schumer.
Yep, which is why he has no future. They are taking him out. Their mob is very effective, and it's, aiming inward. It's their own people now. And Schumer is a goner.
Okay, now you heard me earlier talking about this story that was in the Washington Post, which I say finally somebody is actually trying to understand what's going on here, even though they get a lot of it wrong, even though they're sneering at President Trump through some of it. They understand that this thing that he's doing with these tariffs are huge. They're big. It is a big reordering trying to correct what Democrats and Republicans, to some degree, have been complaining about in America for the past, at least heavily complaining about it the last 40 years. I'm just going to be quiet and I want to hear what you have to think about all of this. We've seen the turmoil in the stock market. We've seen the people over at the Wall Street Journal and other mainstream places lose their collective minds this week. What do you think about what is happening now?
Well, I don't want you to be quiet. I think the best thing is when we talk, because I so enjoyed your analysis in the first hour. Very, very excellent. And, you bounced off of this one piece that you mentioned that got it right on what we're seeing, which is huge. And I just wanted to add to what you were saying. And I think because it's so huge, because it is going to work, because I remember what happened under Reagan in the 1980s. You and I have the benefit of gray hairs and experience, that we are entering the largest psyop that we are going to experience probably in our lifetimes, because there's this window of panic available and hysteria as this gets enacted as of April 2nd, the Liberation Day. And before it starts working, there is several months before it kicks. And so the left and the Democrat Party know this is their last chance, because once this happens, the golden age comes in, the wealth increases for every American. Once the results are in, they have nothing to say. And I remember this happened under Reagan. And I don't know if you remember, when he first got in, which was January of 1981, his tax cuts did not get enacted through Congress until August of 1981. And there was left over from Jimmy Carter, what they call now a Reagan recession. The economy was still struggling, and there was an actual recession.
Yes.
However, the tax cuts came in August of 1981. By November of 82, the economy was a rocket. And
Exactly.
It was those months that the media and the Democrat Party made hay, and that's what they're going to do now. Before the tax cuts kicked in under Reagan, there was hysteria, and they rattled people because there was nothing that people, ordinary voters, could see happening yet. They knew that the tax cuts were coming, but they didn't know in their own experience what it meant for them. But once that happened, once the economy was doing better, people could afford food, people could afford to buy houses after a decade of not being able to do so. What the Democrats and the media said didn't matter because people were experiencing it with their own lives. And the Reagan years, the 1980s, still are known as the decade of prosperity. And a very similar, and in my opinion, even better experience is going to be had if we all hold tight and we all ignore the panic and the hysteria, which I think we're doing because it's the expert class who have been proven wrong again and again and again on the big questions in the last 4 years and longer, who have been proven wrong on everything, including who was going to win the election and why, that they're the ones who are telling us that this is all going to be terrible, this is going to hurt the regular person, it's going to increase prices, all of the doom and gloom. And when none of that happens, when in fact the economy turns around on a dime and we all experience it, they are sunk as a political party, and they know it. And so this is their last hurrah. And so this is all you're going to hear. And so I think as long as people understand what they're seeing in why their hysterics are coming at them in the media, as long as people understand that all you have to do is ignore them, and we are going to be great again, that is the message that, unfortunately, the Trump administration is the only one saying it. The Republicans are very quiet because they are fearful. But we, as Trump supporters and voters, have to basically say it out loud. Just hold on. A few more months, and I say literally under a year, this is all going to be in our lifetime. It's going to be unarguable, and the Democrats are going to have nothing to say. So just ignore them.
Well, one of the things I want to point to before we go to a break, and I need you to hold on for the next segment too, and you pointed this out. When it worked with Reagan, which, as you said, they call it now, we call it the decade of prosperity, but that's not what the liberals called it. When it actually worked and American turned, the economy was on fire, what did they do? They started denigrating people for having prosperity. They called it the decade of greed, the decade of opulence. That's what they said. This is greed. This is opulence. People are greedy. They want because the middle class in America was finally able to have their standard of living increased to the point that they could afford to live nicely. And then that became the target of the Democrat Party. While they themselves, by the way, were doing what they always do, the same leaders that were out denouncing it became incredibly rich, like the Pelosi class, like all of them. These people have done extremely well, but they still denigrate any Republican that brings policies that help the average Americans succeed.
We're so right. Absolutely.
James Golden, Snerdley with you here. We're going to take a quick break. Princess Di is going to stay with us. I have some surprises for you, Your Highness.
Uh-oh.
Always love surprises. You're playing radio. No, this isn't. This is Meryl. You know what the beginning of that sounded like? The beginning riff on that sounded like Jack and Jill from radio. It confused my mind for a second. But Merle Haggard, oh, man, this is the day. You talk about an interesting life. Bookends for Merle Haggard today. Merle Haggard, American singer, songwriter, guitarist, fiddler, amazing musician. Born on this day in 1937, April 6th. Well, actually tomorrow. Passed away April 6, 2016. Passed away on his birthday. But one of the greatest ever in he's just amazing. Merle Haggard, American singer, songwriter, guitarist, and fiddler. Born on this day, 1937, passed away April 6, 2016. Born tomorrow in 1937. Anyway, James Golden's 30. Don't go away. Keep it right here. Jimi Hendrix brings us back, the one, the only Jimi Hendrix. We're playing it because today is the anniversary of the death of one of the men behind Jimi Hendrix. Not just Jimmy, but Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page, Kurt Cobain, Eddie Van Halen, Slash, dozens, thousands of other great musicians. His name was Jim Marshall, the inventor of the Marshall amplifier. Marshalls. If you look at the stage shots and you see the amp by many of the heavyweight power rock and rollers, they're playing their axes, their guitars, through Marshalls. Remembering Jim Marshall on this day. With us is Princess Diana. Okay, Princess, surprise time. Instant analysis. I'm going to play stuff for you, and I just want your take on it. That's all. It's that simple. I just want your analysis. And you don't know what's coming, okay? So we're going to start. Here's Doug Burgum, cut number 5. Doug Burgum, our Secretary of the Interior.
Announcing historically the first lease to be held in what's now the Gulf of America. And a lease sale is an announcement that allows private sector companies to be able to come in and bid on certain geology in a certain geography to be able to do future development. When they bid on that lease, they pay the federal government money, and then when they develop those minerals, they pay a royalty. All of that goes towards helping reducing our debt and reducing our deficit. And so this is great for the American public. It's great for the financial business. And of course, it's also great because right now we've got 15% of U.S. Oil production comes from the Gulf of America. The Biden administration was effectively trying to drive that towards zero by shutting down leasing. We're trying to make sure that we keep that going because it's an important part of America's energy strategy.
All right, Princess Diana, is this going to work?
Absolutely. And it is reflective of the thinking, a businessman type thinking of taking profits and extra money and pouring it into America. Trump administration is doing that in multiple areas, including, I heard Bessent saying, Treasury Secretary Bessent saying that these tariffs are going to be poured into the calculation of the tax cuts, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, and no tax on overtime. So they're looking for ways to increase revenue to the Treasury so that they can then pour it back into the American people. And this is another example.
Okay. Thank you for that. Instant analysis round 2. Princess Diana listens to pundit Elie Mystal on PMS NBC. Cut 1. 1. Okay, so I think we may have to delay this one.
Well, while you're doing
South
that,
Africa got over
Here we go.
apartheid.
Here we go.
Did they just go back to their Afrikaner racist constitution and be like, oh, we just need a couple of amendments. We just need a couple of changes here to make it work. No, they threw the whole thing out and started again, this time asking everybody. Wow. This time having a completely new delegation of all of the people of South Africa, not just the white folks, but not no white folks. Mm-hmm. And they came up with a new constitution. It's one of the reasons why the South African constitution is generally thought of as one of the best constitutions in the world. And ours continues to be a piece of crap.
So what laws would you kick out immediately? What laws are you saying needs to get the out of here?
So the first Princess Diana, we should get rid of America's Constitution because it's a piece of crap and adopt the South African Constitution because everybody in the world thinks the South African Constitution is great. We got about a minute. What do you say?
Well, it is consistent with leftists who devalue our Constitution, our history, our citizens, and our value as a historic nation of freedom. So that is all of a piece, and it doesn't surprise me. And they're, of course, 100% wrong.
Of course. I just love this. This was on Charlemagne the God, who's kind of just sitting there nodding his head as this person rags on America. And by the way, if South Africa's constitution is so great and wonderful, why isn't Mr. Mastel and so many others just, since they hate America under Trump, just saying, you know, we're going to call the movers? Because there is a place that has a wonderful constitution. Princess Di, stay with us. Princess Di, I got a few more of these, so don't go away. James Golden, Snerdley with you here. Keep it right here. Your call's coming up, too. Tomorrow is the anniversary. The year was 1968 when Simon and Garfunkel went number one with this song, which became an iconic song of the age. From the movie The Graduate, the soundtrack. Well, James Golden, Princess Di is here. The surprises continue, Princess Di. Number 26. I talked about this yesterday, and this is the governor of the state of California deciding he wants to create his own foreign policy.
Donald Trump's tariffs do not represent all. And on behalf of 40 million Americans that live in the great state of California, the tentpole of the U.S. economy, 14% of the U.S. GDP, the fifth largest economy in the world, the dominant manufacturing state in America. Our state of mind is around supporting stable trading relationships around the globe. And that's why today I've directed my administration to look at new opportunities to expand trade and to remind our trading partners around the globe that California remains a stable partner.
Okay, Princess Di, what do you make of... Oh, she's laughing.
I tell you, first of all, you know, the guy's record is so terrible. You know, you cannot believe a word he says. I mean, he is someone who is, you know, claiming to be this wonderful business opportunity, but he isn't even a good business opportunity for his people in his own state. They're all fleeing him. So this idea that he's inviting foreign countries to make deals with him, you know, that is, I don't think anyone has anything to worry about. But, of course, it's typical of the left. You know, they believe that they get to be a law unto themselves, and they do not have to abide by the system we have. They can be sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, sanctuary from tariffs, and, you know, this has to be knocked down. But in the meantime, we laugh at him because it's not going to happen.
Well, since we're in California, let's stay in California. I have a Fox News report I want you to listen to, Cut 32, Carlos. And let's just check out this little, from the place where Gavin Newsom started his political career. He ran as mayor there, was mayor, promised to end homelessness. It's now worse than ever, never fixed it. But they have something new going on in California. This is the news report.
San Francisco is launching a new speed safety pilot program backed by Democratic California Governor Gavin Newsom, where how much you pay for a speeding ticket depends on who you are. And it's all in the name of equity. On its website, the City Transportation Authority goes out of its way to explain that speed safety cameras will be dispersed across San Francisco in a, quote, equitable fashion. But not everyone will have to pay the same if they get a ticket. Get this. Low-income offenders qualify for steep fine discounts, guys, up to half off. And if you're homeless but speeding in your vehicle, you can get up to 80% discount. Jerry, here's just one of the many problems I have with it. The reason for this program, for the speed cameras, was reportedly because of high injury areas, meaning where pedestrians have been hit and killed. So since all lives are equal, why are we giving discounts on speeding tickets when everyone should understand how serious it is to drive safely?
That's enough. We got the gist of it. Princess.
Yeah. What could go wrong? It's one of these things that, you know, in actual practice, practice, and the left does this sort of thing all the time because they want to put their finger on the scale for life in general. So they want to basically, help their favored constituency groups and hurt their disfavored ones. And so it never ends up, it ends up punishing the people they're trying to help every single time. And if you remember in the 90s, some conservative groups tried this basic principle with selling cupcakes or muffins for different prices based on characteristics. And the state and the, powers that be shut them down because when it works the other way, they can't stand it because it's so obviously unfair.
It's ridiculous. Okay, have you been following this guy Brandon Gill, this Congressman Brandon Gill at all?
Well, the name's familiar. What was he known for?
He isn't that well known, but I'm seeing this guy took on the PBS lady, and it was hysterical.
He basically made mincemeat of her, and he had his ducks in a row and simply quoted her back to herself and reduced her to a stammering mess. Humana. I don't believe I said that.
Well, yes, you did.
Let me read you the quote. He absolutely ruined her reputation publicly. It was beautiful. Okay, thank you for reminding me.
Well, I've been starting to pay attention to this guy. I think we have a new star on the rise. I want you to listen to something that he said, cut 6, Carlos, and just see what you think of this and of Mr. Gill, Representative Brandon Gill.
Colleagues on the other side want to encourage us to move on from a federal government that was weaponized against the American people that they are supposed to represent and protect. Move on after our FBI was targeting parents who were concerned that their children were being indoctrinated into radical transgender ideologies in their public schools. Move on after the left weaponized the federal government to create a mass censorship industrial complex violating our First Amendment rights. We're supposed to move on after they targeted Catholic Americans, traditional Americans, and labeled them violent extremists. We're told that there's a problem that we can't agree on what's right and wrong, and I agree that is a huge problem. It's a problem that the other side of the aisle can't recognize that censorship is wrong. It's a problem that the other side of the aisle can't recognize that it's wrong for the FBI to target parents concerned about what they're learning in their schools. It's a problem that the other side of the aisle can't recognize that it's a problem whenever our federal government goes after Christian Americans. That's a serious problem, and that's something we should be able to agree on, but unfortunately, we can't.
What do you think there, Princess Di?
Well, he's absolutely right. He's brilliant, and I think you're right. We have a rising star. We need to pay attention. But what he said is so true. When the left is caught at anything, they either say, we all do it, or they say it's society's fault, or they say we have to move on. Those are the tactics of the left when they are politically vulnerable. And so that is almost nature's way of telling you to dig in and don't move on because they are going to be hurt politically.
Wow. Well, last surprise of the morning, joining us for a few moments is America's small caffeinated mom. Not doing an essay this week, but she wanted to respond to, I believe, something that we were discussing about panic and fear. Rhonda, say hello to Princess Diana. Rhonda Schrockyow.
Hey, Rhonda. Good morning. Hey. I have been listening all morning. I'm off for spring break with my family, but something that you said, Diana, about not giving way to panic sparked a few thoughts, and I feel that it's so important to just pause for a brief second and just address that panic and fear. In my own life, I have found that when I give way to fear, I lose my ability to see clearly, to think clearly. It just immobilizes me. In some of my darkest days, this is what actually God would say to me. Do not go by what your eyes can see. And I knew what he was saying without all the words, that he was working, even though it didn't look like it at the time. And it was that faith connection with him that sustained me. I listened to President Trump's speech earlier this week, I think it was on Liberation Day, where he was explaining how these tariffs work. I found that so helpful and so reassuring, and I'm a person who was not alive, I don't believe, when those tariffs were when we were, governed by the tariffs. I've only known the income tax. And so for him to explain clearly and simply the difference and the end results, that was so helpful and so reassuring to me. This, I believe, is going to set so many things straight in America. It's just like when you have a broken bone. And it has to be set straight, and that involves some pain. And the longer it's been broken and the worse it was broken, the longer it will take to heal and the longer it will take to get strong. But it will happen. So I believe that this will make things straight in our country again, and I believe we will see the great reward of it. But one other thing I want to add is I have found it so instructive that when I start telling the truth or I start moving toward truth, I watch for who starts screaming. I watch for who begins to scream, and I listen to what they are saying as they are screaming. If it's hateful and it's contemptuous, full of accusation, then I know the source, and I know that I should close my ear to that voice, to those voices. So wisdom, it is wisdom that will guide us here and will keep us from the rocks of despair. And one more time, I will say what I have said before on this show. There's no reason for despair. It only looks like it. So it may be a little bumpy for a while, but I do not believe that will last forever. There's no reason for despair. It only looks like it.
Oh, good. And it's a good reminder of our national motto, in God we trust. And that is the reason that we do not fear, ultimately. And so I always appreciate you, Rhonda, and that is so much wisdom. And I happy to be able to say, in God we trust, which is why fear has no home here.
That's right. And I appreciate your contribution so much. You're a national treasure, and I always look forward to hearing you.
Well, thank you. This mutual admiration club of the ladies. I just love it. But I love both of you, and thank you for joining us. Princess Di, thank you for taking time out of your spring break. Rhonda, and I look forward to Princess Di, you and I are going to continue this discussion. Thanks for playing along with me. I love this instant analysis thing, Dinah. You never know when I'm going to hit you with this. I have more.
Scary. It's so scary. Hey, James, during the week, I just want to tell you, if I could add why I think the main target for all of these tariffs is China, and it's huge, and this is a big story. Maybe we could talk about it during the week.
Yes, we can. I am so happy that she volunteered for that. Yes, we can. We will pick a date either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. You pick a date. We'll definitely talk about it. I want to talk about China more. Did you love hearing Nancy Pelosi back in the day sounding like Trump?
She was known for it. She was known as hawk on China human rights, and I remember that. And she was a true believer who held firm on China not being correct in their one-child policy, if you remember that, which was horrific, forced abortion on Chinese women. And she stood up for women back then. And then, of course, she became Nancy Pelosi of today, and she no longer holds those values.
Wow. Well, thank you, Princess Di. Thank you, America's Small Caffeinated Mom, Rhonda Schrock. So good to hear from you both.
Thank you, Sir James.
James Golden, Snerdley. Why are we playing this?
Ralph Cooper, drummer for the Australian soft rock band Air Supply, who scored the 1980 UK number 11 single All Out of Love and the 1981 US number 1 single The One That You Love, which is the song we're hearing.
Yeah, it's his birthday tomorrow, right?
My bad. Yes, tomorrow.
Air Supply, soft rock at its best. James Golden and Snerdley with you here. Saturday Morning Vibe continues with your telephone calls, so don't you dare go away. Oh, yeah. Because Carlos felt like playing Coldplay. So we're playing Coldplay. I love these guys, Carlos.
I like them very much as well, yeah.
Yeah. This is real. This makes you happy. They've got
exactly. Yes.
It brings your whole vibe up. Yeah, Coldplay brings us back. The Saturday Morning Vibe. Time for round 3.
James Golden, a.k.a. Bo Snerdley, presents Rapid Phones.
Let's start in New Jersey with Sandra. How are you? Welcome, Sandra.
Oh, thank you, James. Good morning. James, I was thinking about having a good attitude with the tariff situation. Like when we had COVID, we were forced to cut a lot of people out of our lives. Do you remember when that happened? We couldn't go to this, we couldn't go to that, we couldn't visit this one. So after it was over, people started to like it that way, and they started to blame COVID not to get together with people. And then with the inflation with Biden, we learned to shop more wisely. We only shop for what we really need, and then our diet started to benefit. So we will continue that way with tariffs. We won't buy any more than what we need, and it's almost like a good thing. And with the stock market, I lost a lot of money in the stock market, but I asked myself, was I really ever planning to touch it at this time? The answer is no. So I'm just going to go with Donald Trump. I trust him. I don't think he would jeopardize his presidency and make a mistake if he didn't think this was the right thing to do. And if we keep doing what we did, insanity means doing the same thing over and over. So he's trying something new, hoping it's going to work, and I think it will.
But he's not trying something new, Sandra, because he did this in the first term, and it worked, and it went unreported. And I'm not yelling at you. I'm just passionate about this. It went unreported that we won the trade war the first time. The mainstream press refused to actually give him credit for what he did, and Joe Biden, in fact, kept his tariffs on. So it is not anything new. He's just extending what he already did the first term, and which worked, move this economy forward. Sandra, thank you so much for waiting and being so patient. Thanks for the call. Let's go to George in Rockland County very quickly on Rapid Phones. How are you, George?
I'm good. Thanks for taking my call. Can I just comment before I get to my point about Lady Di and Schumer and the AOC?
Yes.
Okay. I think it's a fake poll, probably a very tiny poll. Everybody that I know despises AOC. No chance. Maybe in her own little tiny district in Queens there, people are so blinded. Nowhere else.
Let me tell you something. Let me just correct you there, George. Number one, we gave it is not a poll. It has a 4% margin of error by the stats. I gave the actual information as to how many respondents there were. Everybody does not hate AOC. She's one of the most prolific fundraisers in Democrat Party history. You don't get to be one of the most prolific fundraisers in any of these political parties by being, well, you can be one of the most disliked, but there are a lot of people that have to like you. So I don't know about that. Anyway, I got to move on. Thank you. Robert in Suffolk County, you're up next. How are you, Robert?
Good morning, James. Okay. Revoke Garcia's temporary protected status. He's now and still a member of a terrorist criminal organization, which his status can be revoked. It's temporary.
Thank you. You made your point. I'm going to leave it there. Rapid phones, because we got to get to some other callers. Wendy in Long Island, you are up next. How are you?
Yeah, hey there. Good morning. Love your show. Don't tell my husband that I like waking up with you Saturday morning. Okay.
Thank you.
So I just want to say that the reason why Nancy Pelosi and Obama, and I'm sure some other Republicans like McConnell, never did anything about this is because they're all globalists. And that big sucking sound that you hear was our money going into their wallets.
I love you. Thank you. And whether it went into their wallets directly, I don't want to accuse people of being corrupt when I have no knowledge whether they did or not. What we do know is this, is that the American people suffered. We do know that Ross Perot, they tried to make him out to be a wackadoodle, but when he said that there would be a giant sucking sound of American jobs going into Mexico, he has been proven right on that. Dom in Minnesota, you got maybe 30 seconds.
Yeah, James, I was in graduate school in North Carolina in the 80s when the textile industry started its downward slide. It turned out through the news about the cheap availability of fruit of the loom underwear. Fast forward to today when the mainstream media is concerned about a clerical error in deporting a Maryland gang member dad. The entire Biden administration seems to have been a clerical error because it was the White House Fruit of the Loom clerks running the country,
Boom.
not President Biden.
And on that happy note, Dom, thank you. We got to go. Folks, we're going to leave you today with this one. She's one of my all-time favorite artists. She's one of the, I keep saying this every time I think about it. When Minnie Riperton died in July of 1979, the first time in my life, I broke down over the death of a recording artist. That had never happened to me before because I love this woman so much. Minnie Riperton, voice of an angel. Went number one on this day, 1975. This one, Stevie's playing keyboards on here. Wonder Love is backing her on this. This is, of course, her iconic hit, Loving You, the voice of the one, the only, Minnie Riperton. 5-octave range. You can listen to her also. She was with Rotary Connection before she went solo. Chess Records. Just an amazing artist, an amazing human being. The one, the only, Minnie Riperton takes us home today. May God bless, protect each and every one of you, your family, your loved ones. Love and gratitude for being with you, for me being here with you, allowing that. And I hope to see you next week. Same time, same station. In the meantime, my friends, I bid you adieu. Bye.